Now that is what UPSC directly asked you. तो इसमें अगर आपका करंट अफेयर्स का एनालिसिस उस लेवल पे नहीं है, then it will become very difficult for you to handle this. Third aspect, कि where do you enrich the question? Essentially, the idea of Indian judicial service, उसका जो main theme है, that is judicial independence versus judicial accountability. Starting of the preparation, you are being handled with this. Hi, a very good evening to all the new students of Samachar Manthan. Now, this is a very special onboarding session for you all, so that your all basic questions on how to prepare current affairs, how to go about you're starting the preparation, what to do of the static part, we will be covering this in a wholesome way. Now, I have had discussions with few of the students and your respective mentors as well. So I have a brief idea about what you people are essentially struggling with. So without wasting time, let's address few of the major and the most important questions which you should keep in mind while preparing during the next 1 year. So these are broadly the 4 or 5 questions which I felt was very important to address. First, how to approach current affairs in a very generic way. Now, you have all come here with a lot of hopes and dreams, and current affairs is a very essential part which will form the fundamental enriching substance in your preparation. Now, how do you approach current affairs as a whole, and where and how UPSC tests you? This is the first agenda. Now, the second agenda is the Samachar Manthan classes. How do I go about in my classes, and how are you going to read, write, and retain all those stuff over the period of next 1.5 years. Third, and the most important question, there are too many materials. Is burning issues really necessary? If yes, then how are we going to prepare it? And the fourth one, notes making. Now, about notes making, I'll talk very briefly, and then in the classrooms which we will be having, I will be pointing out markers about how and where you should be making notes. So let's start our first agenda, that is how to approach current affairs. Now, if I say current affairs, you all must be aware that it is required essentially at 2 points, prelims and mains, before you reach the interview. In the interview, you need to develop your opinion, but that will come at a later stage. First and second, prelims and mains. Now, if I tell in prelims and mains, there are essentially 3 kinds of questions that are being thrown at you by UPSC. First is direct questions, straight out from current affairs. Second, derived static. कोई current affairs news आया होगा, उससे directly नहीं पूछ के उसका static part पूछना. And third, even if the question doesn't demand current affairs, how are you going to enrich your answers? We are going to see this with the help of a few examples. So now, let us first take the direct questions which are asked. Now, if you look at this particular question, it asks, in light of the recent Supreme Court verdict on electoral bonds, critically analyze the impact of opaque political funding. So clearly, the current affairs topic here is electoral bonds, and it asks you to analyze it with respect to democratic accountability. This is purely direct. वो उस साल के न्यूज़पेपर में काफी इलेक्टोरल फंडिंग की बात हुई होगी, तो इसीलिए ये क्वेश्चन आया. इसमें there's no need of troubling yourself about thinking what you should write. Issue कहाँ पे आता है? That is where how we are going to come and help you here is with respect to this derived static. Now, this is a direct question from UPSC. So, in a crucial domain like public healthcare system, the Indian state should play a vital role to contain the adverse impact of marketization of the system. Now, if you see that year's current affairs, this was extensively covered under this particular news item, which said that Indians have a high out-of-pocket expenditure or their expenses on out-of-pocket expenditure for healthcare is too high. And one of the reasons was adverse impact of marketization of system. इलेक्टोरल बॉन्ड वाला क्वेश्चन बहुत डायरेक्ट था. आपने करंट अफेयर्स पढ़ा है, मैंने पॉइंट्स लिख के दिया है आपको, चैलेंजेस, वे फॉरवर्ड सब दिया है, उसको आपको डायरेक्ट रट्टा मार के डालना है एग्जाम में. दिस रिक्वायर्स सर्टेन फॉर्म ऑफ एनालिसिस, क्योंकि if UPSC had to ask this directly, it would have asked you about out-of-pocket expenditure. But instead, it asked one of its causes, that is marketization of healthcare. अभी क्वेश्चन उसके बाद इसी के इर्द गिर्द घूमता है. But essentially, the theme which UPSC took was a derived theme. When you read social justice and governance in your static part, you will come across marketization of healthcare, what is the use of public funding of healthcare, these all aspects you will be reading. Now that is what UPSC directly asked you. तो इसमें अगर आपका करंट अफेयर्स का एनालिसिस उस लेवल पे नहीं है, then it will become very difficult for you to handle this. And that is the second motivation behind presenting the Samachar Manthan classes in a way it is done. Then we'll come to the third aspect. Where do you enrich the question? Now this is one more question again. It's directly taken from UPSC. UPSC has asked this question. Now what does it tell? Faster economic growth requires increased share of manufacturing sector in GDP, particularly MSMEs. Comment on the present policies of the government in this regard. What are the present policies of government? You don't have to write the policies, you have to comment. That means you have to analyze the positives and negatives and then present your conclusion, because that is going to be your comment. Now, while analyzing positives and negatives, you are going to throw up examples, and those examples are going to be from current affairs. Writing mains and scoring above 120 is one of the biggest issues which student faces. Our goal here is, if you are writing prelims and clearing prelims, you should appear the interview. Mains should not be a hurdle at all. And in line with this, we are going to value add and go for enrichment of answers to a level where you are a notch above your competitors. Now, ये पूरी ज्ञान की बात हो गई, but how are you going to do this? That is very important. And the questions which spring up in your head with so many material, how are you going to go about? That is what I am going to tell now with respect to Samachar Manthan classes. Now, Samachar Manthan classes में, the weekly document which you get, it usually has two forms or two types of articles. आप अगर उसमें देखोगे, there will be an in-depth issue, which is essentially a mains level article. It has a form of analysis to the extent that we are able to attempt question like marketization of healthcare, which we just saw. And then you have the top layer news. For example, GI tags awarded in April. This was the news of last week. It is a listing of 10 to 15 news. वो मैं पढ़ा लूँ, कोई और पढ़ा ले, आप खुद पढ़ लो. You have to remember those. You have to strike out the important GI tags, कौन से states से हैं, important feature. That is all. Now these are the two types of articles which comes across in Samachar Manthan. First. Now this was again a major article which came last week, which talked about IJS or Indian Judicial Services. Now with respect to Indian Judicial Services, you have why in the news, and then you have a very nice analysis of this particular news. Social media has been flooded with this particular thought. For the first time, a fire brigade has started moving, and so on and so forth. This, you have key issues from the Delhi High Court judge controversy. Then why has the collegium system judicial appointment in India faced criticism over the years? And the analytical part linked to Indian judicial services. Now, when you read this, this essentially allows you to answer what kind of questions? I'll go back a bit. Remember this article? It allows you to answer the direct questions which UPSC will ask. It's about Indian judicial service whose time has come. So it's something which is in the present current affairs. You read this, make notes, you answer the direct questions. Then you come to the classroom on Saturday, Sunday, where I teach you about judicial independence versus judicial accountability. Because essentially the idea of Indian judicial service, uska jo main theme hai, that is judicial independence versus judicial accountability. When you are preparing, or any of your counterparts preparing in other coaching institutes as well, to reach this particular level of thematic preparation of a current affair, they will take good amount of 6 to 7 months or even one attempt, because they will understand that particular topic after a stage of 1 year. You have the go ahead here because at the starting of the preparation, you are being handled with this. Now, you may not be aware of the static portion. You may not be aware of what is the background, what are all the articles. इसमें जितना जरूरी है static, it would be there either in the example or in your Samachar Manthan weekly. From the next class onwards, I will provide a brief amount of static for each and every topic, but do not expect me to teach you the entire static of judiciary. All the static that is related to this, I will take up here and there. But having said that, this is what is more important. क्यों देखो लक्ष्मीकांत, NCERTs, स्पेक्ट्रम, आप दुनिया भर के मेंटर्स के पास चले जाओ, फैकल्टी, कोचिंग इंस्टीट्यूट, आपको यही लिस्ट पकड़ा देंगे कि जाके पढ़ो. So if you're paying a good amount and coming to the class, our goal is not कि मैं तुमको वही 5 बुक पढ़ा के और उसी से नोट्स बना के वापस भेज दूं. You have to take something more. And what is that something more? मैंने जो 3 तरह के क्वेश्चन बोले, ये क्वेश्चन आप करंट अफेयर्स एसएम वीकली से अटेम्प्ट कर लोगे. My role and the role of burning issues will come here in derived static and enrichment. You should not be struggling with more number of classes after that. So now, 6 dilemmas of judicial independence versus judicial accountability. So you get this table, यही 6 पॉइंट है, एग्जाम्पल के साथ है. इससे बाहर आपको 10 तरह के बुक्स पढ़नी नहीं है. वो डी बासु और प्रताप भानु मेहता, you need not go and take out examples. This is a holistic coverage of that particular current affairs topic. And this will enable you to answer such kinds of static derived questions. ये हो गई क्लासरूम तक की बात. Before moving into burning issues, I will present you a timetable. As in, what timetable should you be using? So if I tell, now say this is April week 1. Then you have week 2, week 3, week 4. Then you move into May, where you have again week 1 and week 2. Somewhere around this part, as in if I say April week 2 is here, somewhere around here, around May week 2, Burning Issue magazine comes. Now again around April 15, 16, around BI or the Burning Issue magazine of March comes across. So you moved into April. How you are going to study? In this you have Saturday and Sunday, and in the Monday you have the test. So in week 1, Saturday, Sunday, you take up the Samachar Manthan weekly, attend the classes, read it, make notes from it, very short notes. Once you are done here, Then you give the test on Monday. Then you move to week 2. Again, Saturday, Sunday is your Samachar month and days. On Monday, give the test. Wrap up this week. So this is what you are going to do with the weekly document and the classes. Around week 2, burning issue comes up, which contains 20 issues. Now, this has been planned very meticulously for you. These 20 issues are of March. You pick up one issue daily and read it. Make notes. Value add. जो मार्च के मंथ में आपका हुआ होगा ना समाचार मंथन क्लासेस, any issue where you feel there's a requirement of value addition, add. And I know there will be a lot of value addition required. So you start reading BI March from second week onwards. In 2 weeks or 3 weeks time, you will wrap up BI. March month. So by the end of April, essentially, you have covered 4 weeks of April. And March का जो burning issue का magazine है, you revise the current affairs of March month in a more meticulous way. One problem which you face while current affairs preparation is, जैसे, and this actually a lot of rankers have also faced. March month का current affairs खत्म हुआ, we had classes, you had tests. Once you move into April, तो March month आप भूल जाते हो. Let's be honest with ourselves, ये वाला सबके साथ होता है. Then again, जब तक आप मई में पहुंचते हो, वो फिर से पीछे वाला भूल जाते हो. Burning issue helps you to keep in touch with that at the first place, and this is probably the best way how you can deal with it. April का weekly current affairs goes on. BI of March helps you to revise the previous month from second week onwards, and this is how your timetable or preparation schedule materializes. Now, why so much of focus on burning issues? This is what I'm going to take up. Where does burning issues score? There's just 20 articles. So remember, by the end of 12 months, you will have 240 high quality articles. Why high quality? Now, this is one question, or this is one article which came in the month of January. We had taken up a particular issue on draft digital protection rules. If you see the previous year questions and micro themes, you will find UPSC has specifically focused on right to privacy. And so this article becomes very important. Now this you will get a listing here, जो आपको जाके शायद कोई PYQ बैंक या वहां से ढूंढना पड़ता. You get it right here itself. You have the micro theme document. Micro theme fundamental rights से है. You go and read the fundamental rights from your static part and whatever notes you have. PYQs and micro themes is sorted in this article itself. अभी ये issue को पढ़ना कैसे है? Just go for note for students. So what does note for student tells? This portion essentially tells you what this article covers. A normal aspirant who's studying at his home or with anywhere, what is the common mistake that he will make, and he or she will realize it ultimately on the day of the exam. So it points you out those mistakes. Second, it tells you from this topic where does UPSC focuses its attention on. If you see, UPSC often asks questions from such topics in the context of governance, technology and rights issues. When we are reading data protection bill, usually जब आप नए start करते हो, you will go for say a privacy issue, but you will miss out on the governance aspect, technology aspect, rights aspect. So this provides you that path. This is the most important part of the article. And what mistakes other aspirants do, you should not be doing. Then it points out which is the most important section of the article. For example, here it's given the back to basics section is especially valuable. And why it is valuable? Because it connects theoretical concepts with real life examples. The real life examples are the one which is going to give you an edge of 20% in your mains examination, because you will be ready with such examples which probably people will waste 1-2 good weeks on them. Now, this is what Note for Students is all about. Then you have the features, which is the current affairs, जो direct questions की बात की थी हमने, type 1 question. Then what are the rules and advantages and disadvantages? Now, when we are telling the advantages and disadvantages, you will see that each rule has been dissected into its respective advantages and challenges. So it makes your preparation the most holistic as possible. And finally, we talked about back to basics. Note for Students में था कि back to basics is the most special feature of the article. Now, why it is special feature? क्योंकि यहाँ पे we gave you what is the derived static. What is the most difficult form of questions which UPSC has asked and we just saw? What is the derived static from this particular topic? And that topic is, why is it essential to balance privacy rights and needs of the government? So this essentially is just not another current affairs magazine जो आप लोगे पढ़ोगे वो करना. There's a good challenges, way forward government initiatives. Let's be real, these are the 3 aspects जो हर current affairs magazine cover करता है. But वहां पे issue होता है direct questions attempt करने में शायद issue ना हो. But जो static, derived और enrichment की बात की, you will spend hours and hours in that, and it takes a toll on your mental health, honestly. So this, you get it directly with why it is important and what are the examples. This is how you are going to use burning issues. और timetable की बात मैंने पहले कर ली. अगर timetable की बात अगर आपको फिर भी उसमें डाउट है या फिर मैंने थोड़ा फास्ट करा लिया, उसको बार बार रिवाइंड करके देख लो. I think it will sort things out. Last चीज, notes कैसे बनाना है. I'll just give you a live example here. Why is it essential to balance privacy rights of the government? अभी मेरे को first principle का note बनाना है. So my note will look something like this: beneficial governance. Now, once you read this particular article 2-3 times, governments require access to data for governance, public safety, welfare schemes, but excessive access can lead to mass surveillance and loss of. So you understand the point, danger of mass surveillance. And then what is the example it's given? Aadhaar system. Now, Aadhaar system provides essential social benefits, but concerns over biometric data security have led to legal challenges of privacy. Now, you understood this. Once you have understood this Aadhaar system, so first point का notes आपका इतना बन गया. Second point, accountability and transparency. Ensures government and corporation disclose data usage to prevent misuse. So I'll write here prevent misuse plus build trust. Accountability and transparency. I write the keywords and example है General Data Protection Rules or GDPR of EU. So this is how your entire, these are just 2 points. This is how your note should look. From the next class onwards, I'll be telling what are the important points which you should be making notes. I hope a lot of things are clear from this particular video. With that, I'll be ending this session. Thank you.